So, folks, this is Jonathan of Arcade Repair Tips. We have been acquaintances for a while, heck, friends even for the most part. And he is a gamer, much like I am. On those that know my channel, do a lot of gaming. Obviously, that's what it's all about. And me and him are pretty old school. He's actually he's been doing gaming longer than I have. We both grew up in arcades. We both did a lot of stuff. And for those that don't know, arcades started out with pinball for the most part. Pinball is responsible for arcades. And even though arcades are kind of I hate to say they're becoming more obsolete with each year, which is a sad fact, unfortunately, how the home console really impacted the industry on that part and PC gaming as well. You know, they have made a business, a model of going to different conventions when it comes to building arcade cabinets. Main machines, for those that don't know what that is a multi-cabinet that you can emulate different systems on, classic arcade games, console games, all kinds of stuff. It's a great build. And of course, you know, pinball machines. And a little known fact for those that don't know, I just learned the other day, pinball games were actually banned in certain cities for a certain period. I think it was back in the 70s or 80s. They were illegal. It's weird, but true. But anyway, Jonathan is here to talk with us more about Arcade Repair Tips. They have a YouTube. I'll post it down below. They also have a Facebook. I'll post that down below. They do a lot of great work. And you are actually co-owner. I know Tim is a co-owner. He's another buddy. But do you have two more people in there?
We do have several other people. I mean, the main core is probably me and Tim. But as we've grown, as we've gotten more fans, of course, we've added more staff. And so all of our staff is volunteer. We don't make any money, really. It's all goes back into paying for the website and all that kind of stuff. But Mark Nellis is a Facebook moderator for us, and so he moderates our Facebook page. We have Louis Grubbs. He also moderates our Facebook page. And then we do have some other kind of general staff that works with us as well. Our friend Stanley Bell, Eric Stinson, some others that we use. But for the most part, the core of it's kind of me and Tim. And we founded Arcade Repair Tips back in 2008. And so, you know, 2008 is a really long time now. It didn't seem that long when we did it. But, you know, since then, basically, we've produced YouTube video primarily centered around arcade repair. Okay. But we do, like you said, we go to conventions, we go to different seminars and things. We record the video at these seminars. So, I mean, that's part of it. But it really is just basically a love of arcade gaming, pinball machines that really keeps us doing what we do. And of course, helping people is a big part of it too, because we answer questions from people. We have an audio podcast that we do. It's called the Question and Answer Podcast. We take the questions that we get and we basically read them off and then answer them. So almost Dear Abby style, or if people are familiar with like Car Talk, I mean, that would be, I guess the equivalent would be like Car Talk. But either one I think is really entertaining. And so if you guys haven't checked out Arcade Repair Tips, I would, you know, definitely recommend it. Obviously, I don't know if you guys can see my video here, but I have the little URL down here at the bottom. This little moniker is usually on most of our videos. So if you're watching on YouTube, you see the little Arcade Repair Tips down at the bottom. That's one of our videos that we've produced. So for the most part, it really is a great thing. Now, one thing you did mention is that arcades are kind of going downhill, and that's true to a certain extent. But I will say in the last probably 5 years, we've seen a resurgence in arcades, mainly fueled around the retro scene and barcades, of course, have really become popular. Retro barcades, where, you know, people play the classic arcade games and they can also drink and have a good time with their buddies. And so that has really become a great business model. And there's also museums and things that are opening up all the time with arcades kind of in them. And so, you know, it's almost become more of a preservation type thing as far as the arcade industry is concerned. But there are facets of the arcade industry that are still doing very well. Dave & Buster's is a great example of that, a company that has, you know, really been doing well financially with new games and having new manufacturers signing on. I mean, they basically get rights exclusively to some games. I believe they just got the rights exclusively for Luigi's Mansion arcade game that's going to be there very soon. So if you guys have played Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube or on the 3DS, I'm sure you guys can relate to the gameplay. It's going to be very similar to that.
You know, what's interesting is actually I had no idea, but I was at the movie theater yesterday. I went to go see Batman v Superman, and by the way, great flick for anyone who hadn't seen it. But they had a Mario Kart arcade, which I never knew about, and I thought that was awesome. It was fantastic. I never knew that Nintendo actually did, you know, some arcades like that.
If I remember correctly, it was a cross promotion between Namco and Nintendo. They created Mario Kart GP, which is the version, and they have several different versions of it now.
Oh, okay.
But it's very similar to Mario Kart, plays very similar to Mario Kart. The only difference, of course, is that you're actually in a driving cabinet like you would be for Cruis'n USA or any of the other driving games that you may be familiar with. But you still have the banana peels, you still have the blue shells, you still have all of the great stuff that made Mario Kart great. So it really is a fun game. It doesn't matter whether you're playing in the arcade or at home.
Yeah, it's really cool. What you know, personally, what I loved about arcades growing up, and you know, a lot of people have probably seen Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph is one of my all-time favorite movies, mainly because it really does touch on the things about childhood and being in an arcade. Just, you know, going at the joystick. For me, it was Street Fighter.
Yes.
Going at the joystick, you know, just really wailing at somebody that might come up and challenge you on the side. You know, you put the quarter up to save a spot and all this and that. And, you know, it's that totally retro feel that I've always loved. And, you know, there was a place, and actually a lot of them down in Texas, called Nickel Mania.
Yes.
And so, you know, you could spend a nickel, go to the arcade. They had skee-ball, all kinds of stuff. The classic X-Men arcade, which was awesome. Simpsons, all that. You know, that's what I grew up on. So does Arcade Repair Tips, do y'all cater to that at all? Do y'all have any links with any major companies to really help them out at all?
Not really. I mean, obviously Tim works for Chuck E. Cheese, and so Chuck E. Cheese is probably, you know, the biggest company. It's not really an alliance per se, but because Tim works there, we obviously get a lot of inside information on Chuck E. Cheese. And I say inside information, but it's really just information that has come out that the general public might not actually be aware of. And so,
Gotcha.
you know, there's a lot of that information that comes like on our podcast and things that we do discuss. And so if you guys are interested in that, you can definitely listen to our podcast. But as far as official companies, though, I mean, we've talked to people from companies before, especially pinball companies, and really had a great time with them, and, you know, get to learn a lot about the industry that way. The industry, although it's smaller and still changing, I mean, I think a lot can happen. And one of the things that even Nolan Bushnell, who's the founder of Retardi, mentioned the other day was he really thought that the arcades can make a comeback with VR. Perhaps VR is the next thing that we could see. And so, you know, I think there's always opportunities to not necessarily reinvent, but maybe new technologies that are too expensive for consumers right off the bat. There may be an opportunity for arcades to get into that niche. And that's basically what happened, you know, back in the day, was that nobody could afford arcade machines, right? And so in order to play arcade machines, you know, establishments would buy them, you'd put quarters in them and play them. And so, you know, I think VR might be the same thing. At first, a lot of people might not want to adopt, and it's kind of expensive barrier to entry. And so, you know, if arcade owners can invest in that, that might be another outlet for them coming up. So
that's a really good point, because, man, VR is really hitting the market hard. Sony's coming out with it, Microsoft's coming out with it, Google's coming out with it. You know, Facebook now has Oculus, that's coming out with it. And so if those arcades really started taking off, you know, and that's a really valid point of that being an option for people that can't afford the in-home stuff right away. And that's a really, really cool thought. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
But to start having VR arcades, which is awesome, it would be epic, because obviously VR takes you to a whole new level of gaming, a whole new level of experiences. Not to mention the balance opportunities for training for professional careers and stuff like that in VR, say for like surgery or something like that. But when it comes to gaming, it's, you know, totally immersive. And it's always astounded me how the gaming world has just been evolved. You know, how it's becoming the top profit-making industry, right above movies, which is insane. And so, you know, and it's really awesome to think that, you know, most of this stems from arcades and the people's love of gaming. You know,
absolutely. And you're exactly right. And it's just amazing how the industry has changed over all of these years. And like you said, we definitely have shifted more towards a console home focused market. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I still think that there's always going to be opportunities on the coin op side of things, even if it's not coin operated anymore, as we continually see companies going to swipe cards and other things, other methods to pay for, you know, games and things like that. But I think there's still going to always be opportunities in the arcade arena. Maybe not as many as what we've had in the past, but definitely will still be there.
Right. Yeah. No, and I agree. And you know, you mentioned the preservation fact. There's it's really awesome that, you know, we now have these preservation areas. I want to say museums, but it makes it sound so archaic. But it's just,
I like to say retro arcades. Maybe retro arcades is the better way to say it.
That's better. That's a lot better. I like it better. But yeah, it's really cool to see that these are such a, you know, an important part of the gaming community, and just, you know, what they do. And to really know, and, you know, the fact that you say that it's making a resurgence back is really awesome, because one of my fears, and it sounds really nerdy, but one of my fears was that my kids would probably never get to experience an arcade. You know, just the feel of going up and hanging out with friends and all that. And instead of just being inside and playing online, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love playing online with people, but arcades, from a fundamental standpoint, really do help build community skills, interacting with people, you know, to some level. And so to hear that, it's really, really awesome news.
Yeah, and you see, and you know, there are always going to be people, I think, keeping arcades alive, whether it's us or somebody else. There's always going to be a group of collectors there that are going to keep arcade games alive, and I think it's just a matter of time before, you know, you see more and more games ending up in collectors' hands, and them wanting to open arcades. And I think that's really what's happened. Like I said, over the last 5 years with barcades, an extension of that is that we see these retro arcades popping up here and there, because people like you and me, we have a lot of nostalgia for these things, like you mentioned, and we want to share those opportunities with our kids. And online gaming is good, don't get me wrong, but there is something about being right beside the person that you're playing, interacting with them, and, you know, even maybe using a little bit of an elbow to knock them off the controls every so often. Or whatever the case may be. So there is something to that, I think, that people don't you know, people nowadays may miss, you know, with online gaming and things. But, you know, I have a Blitz Showtime cabinet, and when you have 4 people around that playing Blitz or Showtime, either one of those games, or like you said, a 4-player X-Men, 6-player X-Men, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, some of my best gaming memories came around those cabinets and playing them when I was a kid and getting to know complete strangers. And that really was the best fun of it. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely, you know, this interactive real life experience of playing next to somebody, having fun. That's what arcade gaming was really all about. So
it really is. Yeah. And it was such a great part of childhood too. And it still is. And that's, you know, and that's what's great about it. That's why I've always loved you guys, because, you know, I've dealt with you in the past. We did some business together with a local game shop down in Texas, and I really loved what y'all did. I loved seeing people come in each day, because y'all had some arcades set up in the shop, and I loved people come in. And I had one guy that always came in to play X-Men versus Street Fighter, and he would always just stand up there, and people would come up and challenge him. I challenged him a few times at lunch. I got my butt kicked, but I challenged him a lot, and it's really cool to see that, and it's one of the greatest feelings in the world. So I definitely agree with that. So how long has Arcade Repair Tips been around? I know
basically, 2008. So it's 2016. In May, it'll be 8 years officially. So we started in May of 2008 was when we released our first post on the website. We really didn't do much after the first post until about a year later, when we started posting the videos and things. But we still consider May 2008 as kind of like our official anniversary. And so May 2016 this year will be hitting 8 years, which is a really long time to be doing this. When I started, I did not have a daughter, and and things have really changed since then. But at the same time, you know, my love of arcade gaming, love of gaming in general, has not waned because of that, and I still enjoy it. And, you know, I think I mentioned earlier the big aspect of it. Really, I mean, it is arcades and it's helping people, but that's the big part of it, is helping the people. You know, we get so many questions from people who, you know, they get a game. Maybe they buy it online, they buy it on Craigslist, and they get it home and it doesn't work, and they don't know who to reach out to. The guy they bought it from says, "Oh, I can't help you," whatever the case may be. And we get so many questions like that. Well, I bought it from this guy, I brought it home and it didn't work. Well, the thing about a lot of these games is that they're 20, 30 years old or more. And so, I mean, if they get bumped around, if they get jostled a little bit, there's a good chance that wires could come loose, or you could have other issues with them. And so, that's usually what happens when you move games. We always talk about like moving games is kind of the death nail sometimes, is that it can actually cause more problems. And so you always have to be careful when you move games, but you know, it's still great to get those emails, be able to help those people out. And that's the real essence of what we do. Of course, what we do is we help people out with arcade repair, but helping people is really what we consider it as. We consider it as a helpful service that we provide. We don't charge any money to answer questions. And so anybody can send us a question. We try our best to get back to everybody. I can be completely honest and say that's not always the case. And a lot of that's because sometimes we get so many questions that it just gets really busy. But for the most part, we try our best to help everybody who sends in an email as best we can. So,
well, yeah, and that's what I was about to mention. Anybody that is interested in building an arcade cabinet, actually, you guys can help a lot. And what I was going to ask is that nowadays, because back in the day, you know, I had a general idea of what pricing would be. But if somebody wanted to build a basic cabinet for a classic game, say like Galaga, how, you know, is it prohibitively expensive, or is it fairly moderately cheap?
It really depends on how far you want to take it. I mean, I think you can go with you know, like something that's become really popular are kind of like what we call bar top cabinets, very small little cabinets. And so you can build a bar top with pretty much everything you need pretty cheap. And I mean, when I say pretty cheap, you know, $400 or less, perhaps, depending on if you build it or if you buy a cabinet kit and what parts you use. For full size arcade cabinets, I mean, you know, like a full stand-up arcade cabinet, just the cabinet itself sometimes runs, you know, anywhere from $350 to $500 depending on the cabinet. And then of course you'll need the parts to go in it. You'll need a monitor, you'll need a board, and then you'll need a power supply of some sort. Now, Galaga itself, like finding an original Galaga board is very expensive because they are kind of in demand, and unfortunately they're very fragile. And so with Galaga boards, you have to be very careful with them. There's some bulletproofing techniques that you can do to the board in order to ensure that it works a little bit better, but it can be a very fragile board to work with, so you have to be careful. What's become popular with people are the multi-boards, the 60-in-1s, the 412-in-1s, basically these software emulated based boards that basically run a version of like MAME, like what you were talking about earlier, except they're a board that's kind of self-contained, so you don't have to worry about setting up a computer, using keyboard encoders, using video frequencies and stuff. And those boards can run anywhere from like $50 to like $400, depending on how many games you want to play. The 60-in-1 is probably the most popular though, and it plays 60 of the most classic games that you can think of. So that's Frogger, Miss Pac-Man, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, everything basically that you can think of. A 60-in-1 board, you know, you can get that for around $50 to $75 shipped to your door. And so if you did like a $350, $500 cabinet, you bought that board, monitor's going to run you a little bit. I think the cheapest LCD monitors now are, you know, $150, $200. Wow. And then, you know, plus a power supply and some wiring. I mean, you're probably looking somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, maybe $800 or so, maybe to get you a 60-in-1 with a new clean cabinet and get all the stuff that you'd want on it. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, it is expensive. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you and say this is a cheap hobby. It's definitely an expensive hobby. But at the same time, and when you think about what you're getting one cabinet that plays 60 of the greatest classic games you ever think of for that price. I mean, man, you think years ago that wouldn't have even been possible. So
yeah, exactly. Well, you know, and what's surprising is how semi-complicated, not real complicated, but semi-complicated building an arcade cabinet can be, because what I learned back in the day was that there's different types of boards for different types of games. And you know, when you think about an arcade, you think, okay, well, you know, maybe there's just a motherboard with some controls that's hooked up to a monitor, you know, but there's a little bit more to it than that. And it's kind of like building a PC. You know, you gotta kind of have the right parts that fit with the right part, and so it's really crazy to think that, you know, a game that something that gives somebody such joy and such awesome power to really, you know, play any game they want to, especially with you know, the board you're talking about, is it's cool just to think about what's involved with getting it built. It's so, you know, it's crazy. But what I was going to ask is, with arcade repair tips, I know. Now, do y'all provide the service of building it for somebody and maybe delivering it within a certain range of area?
You know, we used to do that, but we've really kind of shied away from that in recent years. And the main reason is because we like to give people the knowledge how to do it themselves, and then allow them to apply that knowledge. Because once you build it yourself, you know a lot more about how it works. You have an understanding of it. If something breaks with it, you at least have a great idea of how to fix it. We don't mind doing that locally. So, we're located in the East Texas area. And so if somebody in the East Texas area is interested in getting a game, we can definitely help you out with that. But at the same time, we try not to focus on that part of it as much as we used to. That used to be kind of our primary business. When we first met Kenny, of course, we were operators. And so what arcade operators do is we put games in establishments and then split the proceeds with the location owner, whoever that is. Now we don't have any games on location. We're purely an online focused business, and Arcade Repair Tips is the vast majority of that. And so really what we try to do is we try to give people the knowledge to do things like that, build your own cabinet, and then kind of let them go from there. If somebody is looking for a game, that will be happy to help you out. Or if you're looking to build one in your local, we can definitely help you out with that as well.
Okay, so in essence, you could, aside from answering questions, if somebody's really serious about it, you could probably get in touch with somebody that might have a certain board or a certain kind of cabinet.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of places we can send you if you guys are looking for boards, or if you're looking for, custom controls, or if you're looking for parts. We definitely have a lot of parts suppliers that we recommend. And if you go to our website, arcaderepairtips.com, if you go /resources on the end of that, there's a resource page that has our parts suppliers, our board repair guys, our monitor repair guys. And so if there are things that you're looking for, services you would like done in the arcade community, a great place to go, arcaderepairtips.com/resources.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to touch on, because I know not a whole lot of people have used them, but when it comes to home gaming, there are arcade sticks that people can use for fighting games, such as Street Fighter. With the resurgence of Street Fighter 4, now Street Fighter 5 is out, Tekken, all this and that. In your personal opinion, and it may just depend on the brand here, but do the in-home arcade sticks compare to the actual thing?
Here's the thing. A lot of the in-home arcade sticks nowadays are built with the same controls. And so, it's hard to compare one to the other because they literally are the same version of what you play at the arcade. The only difference is that it's in a little mini stick instead of being on a big control panel. And so the sticks, especially they're building now for tournaments and things, I mean, those controls are as high-end as you're going to get. Those are the stuff that you really need. Now, the arcade controls you remember playing are the controls that I prefer. I will say that. Yeah. But I'm not a tournament player by any means. But the Street Fighter 5 tournament players, I'm sure, would totally disagree with me. They're going to use their custom sticks or whatever that they make. But for me, I love my just standard 8-way joystick that works with pretty much every fighting game arcade-wise out there imaginable. And to me, I would rather play the arcade version of that than to use one of the home sticks. Now, if you're talking about back in the day, though, like Super Nintendo, Genesis, and Nintendo, there's no comparison. The arcade sticks were way better. But now, because of competition and because of the home market taking so much of the arcade market, we've really seen basically the arcade market, the controller manufacturers move towards the home market, trying to satisfy the demands on the competition side of things. And so if you watch any competition, you'll see the same stick in that home, the same joystick basically in that home console thing that they carry around is the same one that they would have in, their Astro City cabinet that they have at home. I mean, it's pretty much going to be the same setup. And so now there's so much parity between that it's pretty much the same experience either way.
Well, cool. That's good to know. Yeah, because thinking about it, because I've taken apart some controllers in my day, and looking at the older joysticks. Some of the newer ones I don't have a whole lot of experience with, but back around PlayStation 2, Xbox era, you take one apart, and basically all it was just like in our arcade build, just with the controller keys remapped on. Yeah. Which is essentially pretty much all it is. So is it pretty much the same thing today? Can you answer that?
I mean, it really is. It pretty much is the same thing today. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference. I mean, with the PC side of things, I mean, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put a keyboard encoder on the inside. Sometimes, though, they will hack a joypad, and they'll put a joypad up in the inside of like a big joystick. It just really depends on whoever the builder is and what they decide to do. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different methods to accomplish the same thing. And, it just depends on which method works best for you or which one you do the tutorial on, I guess. So.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I got to ask, personally, what was the first arcade game that really grabbed you, that got your attention?
Golly, that's a big one. Actually, for me, I think it was Galaga. And the reason why is because my dad was a huge Galaga player. Every time we would go out to a restaurant that had it, he would play it. And so when I was a kid, I would play it too. And so, you know, Galaga is probably my first. I love to play Galaga. I'm okay at it. I'm definitely not tournament level or high score level by any means, but I do enjoy playing it. And we do have high score competitions around here from time to time. I do have a Galaga cabinet, and it's still fun to play, and it's still a great game. And it's probably the game I get asked the most about besides Miss Pac-Man. So Miss Pac-Man, Galaga are the two that people pretty much associate with their childhood, it seems like.
So okay, because see that strikes me in a different way, because I always thought that Pac-Man would be more popular than Miss Pac-Man just because it came out before Miss Pac-Man. But I guess you know, the Miss Pac-Man, because actually I just saw a Miss Pac-Man commercial the other day. It was crazy. But yeah, okay, so that's good to know, because again, Pac-Man came out before Miss Pac-Man, so I always assumed, you know, that would be more popular.
And Kenny, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that more Miss Pac-Man cabinets were produced than Pac-Man cabinets, though.
Wow.
So, and I think that's part of why people associate it with Miss Pac-Man. It's just because it was in more places at the time. And to me, it is a superior game. And so the original Pac-Man, there's patterns, there's a lot of things that you can do. And Miss Pac-Man has some patterns, but there's a little bit more randomness to it than you had with the original Pac-Man. They changed it up enough to where it's much more difficult. And so the challenge is there. You know, perfect games on Pac-Man happen a lot. Right. But you don't hear many, if at all, that I can recall about a perfect game on Miss Pac-Man. And part of that, I think, is the randomness that is associated with it. And so, speaking
of perfect games, that's actually something else I was going to ask you. For those that don't know, Pac-Man has a certain amount of levels. Certain boards had a glitch. You could actually kind of cheat your way through to gain a certain amount of lives if you went to a certain area on the map, stuff like this. But did you ever play a perfect game?
Oh, absolutely not. So I'm not that good. Now, I have met Billy Mitchell.
Oh, really?
Who has had a perfect game, and he is very good. So I will tell you that. I went to a festival in Atlanta. He was there, and he was actually playing people at the first level of Pac-Man. So it's whoever could get the highest score between you and him on the first level of Pac-Man. And of course, Billy pretty much won out every time. I will tell you that. But here's the thing you need to know about Billy is that a lot of what he puts up is a pro wrestling type stick. Okay, it's like, you see pro wrestlers and they kind of have that imposing figure of who they are on television. And then you meet the guy in real life and he's like, hey, he's really nice. He's not that bad guy that he was on TV. He doesn't act like that. And that's how Billy Mitchell is. Now, he has a biting, dry, sarcastic humor that is like none other. And he's very smart and his wit is really, really quick, okay? But he's really not as the King of Kong paints him out to be. If you guys have seen that movie, he's much nicer than that, I can guarantee you.
Oh, hey, that's good to know. Yeah, no, I actually I remember him being mentioned in a couple of documentaries. Actually, I think he was mentioned. There was Ernest Cline did a documentary about the whole ET thing out in the all the ET games being buried, and they dug them up, all this and that. And Billy Mitchell's name kind of came up when they started talking about certain areas of arcades and all that. So I remember hearing about him a little bit. So that's
okay. Well, you need to do yourself a favor, and your watchers need to as well. King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters. Go watch it tonight if you haven't seen it. It's about the high score competition between Billy Mitchell and Steve Wiebe on Donkey Kong. And so it basically documents a time. Billy Mitchell had the high score for a very long time until Steve Wiebe beat him. And then Billy took it back. And so it's basically the story of that. Now, since that documentary, it's really not a documentary, it's more of just a dramatic film. But since it came out, tons of people have entered the Donkey Kong high score, I guess, competition, if you will. And so I don't think either one of them has it right now. But it's definitely worth watching The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters, if you haven't already. So,
all right, cool. Well, yeah, definitely check it out. Did that recently come out, or has it been out for a few years?
A few years. It's got Walter Day in it, who's the official Twin Galaxies referee. He also founded Twin Galaxies, which is the official high score keeper for video games, according to Guinness Book of World Records. And it has Steve Wiebe, of course, in it, who's basically an ordinary guy who's just really good at Donkey Kong. And so, yeah, it's been, I can't remember even when it came out, but it's been several years. But that's kind of one of the things that brought classic retro arcades, I think, back into mainstream media. So,
man, it's nuts. It really is. So with arcade repair tips, y'all, you obviously provide service. You got the audio podcast and everything. Y'all, obviously, like we mentioned earlier, have built cabinets before. Was there a very first cabinet that y'all built that y'all maybe still have around? It's kind of like, no, this was our first one.
Well, we do. The very first cabinet we built was a MAME cabinet. And the reason why it was a MAME cabinet was because when me and Tim first met, I knew absolutely nothing about arcades. And Tim came in. I worked at Best Buy. I was selling computers to pay for my school. And Tim came in to buy a computer. And we started talking. He said he liked arcades. He worked at Chuck E. Cheese. I said, well, have you heard of MAME? I'd love to put together a MAME machine. He's like, yeah. Why don't you come over sometime and we'll try to build one. I said, okay. Wow. And so, like, I don't know this guy really. I mean, except for that he bought a computer from me and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go check out his house. So I go to his house, and he's got a shop that just has arcade games everywhere. And so I'm in freaking heaven. I've never seen anything like this at anybody's house before. Yeah. And so, I'm like, let me come over here. We'll teach me stuff. We'll work on stuff, and we'll build the MAME cabinet. Okay, we'll do all of that. And so we did all of that, and I learned a lot, and then we built a MAME cabinet. It was a 4-player unit, and it's still in our storage building right now, and it still works. We haven't plugged it in a very long time because it has been in storage. Tim has moved, and since he's moved, it's been in storage since, and so it's been a while since that happened. And so we do still have that first cabinet, I guess you could say, we built around, but we really aren't doing anything with it right now. Who knows where it's going to end up. We might actually have a cabinet to build a new MAME setup, and so this is probably going to be the replacement for me to that old cabinet, but so much has changed with MAME since we built that original cabinet. I mean, this is 2001, 2002 time frame.
Oh, wow.
That, even though it functions and it works great, there's a lot of new innovation out there, and it'd probably just be worth redoing at this point. So
that makes sense. Yeah. So what about, because you said there's a few other people involved with arcade repair tips. How did they come along in the timeline? Is it people you just met at the convention, or somebody just connected with online that
Well, Mark was interesting. Mark was from San Antonio, and we were doing the podcast, and he wrote into us saying that he was a soldier in Afghanistan, and our podcast was one of the things that kept him going.
Oh, wow.
And so we're like, oh, that's awesome. He's a soldier in Afghanistan. He's listening to our podcast.
Wow.
So we were so excited about that. And so we got to talk with him. He's like, hey, tell us more. And, he told us, well, I'm in Afghanistan now. I'm going to go to Korea. And so he went to Korea, and he kind of gave us updates and everything like that. And, we basically asked him, at some point, hey, we'd really like for somebody to take over the social media part of it, the Facebook stuff, if you'd be up for that. And he said, absolutely. And so ever since then, he's been doing it. And we're really good friends. I saw him this past weekend at Texas Pinball Festival, and I'm trying to work out a deal with him for his Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 board. And so, Mark, if you're listening, we'll talk about it once once I get off here. But he's a really great guy. Lives down in San Antonio, and just like I said, love Mark, and just can't say enough good things about him. Just a stand-up guy. And then he introduced us to his friend Joe, which I forgot to mention Joe Rivera earlier, but Joe has kind of become the official photographer. So when we go to events like the Texas Pinball Festival or Houston Arcade group expos, things like this, he goes and he takes pictures for us. And he was in the military as well with Mark, and that's how they met. And he's been discharged since, and now he's got a very nice job with a very reputable tech company. I'm not going to name names, but
yeah, right.
He lives here in Texas as well. He's a really great guy, and him and his wife just got married in November of last year, so they're still newlyweds, and they're having a great time. And so I got to see him this past weekend. That was great. Our friend Stanley Bell actually lived here with us, and me and Tim were going to garage sales, and just one week out of the blue, we're going to a garage sale, and I look over in somebody's garage, and I'm like, hey, that's an arcade game in there. And sure enough, it was, and that's how we met Stanley Bell. And then after that, he went arcade crazy. He owns more than probably all of us, all the rest of the arcade repair tip staff. I mean, he definitely has quite a few, but he's recently had some health trouble, and so Stan, just want to continue to wish that you get better if you are watching this, because we've really been trying to lift him up because of that. So but he's out of the hospital. That's the good part, and he's on his way to making a full recovery. So but Stanley Bell is kind of unofficial staff. I mean, a lot of these guys are, because like I said, we had no payment plan or anything. So Louis Grubbs is kind of a new addition. We just added him oh golly, I can't even remember, late last year, and he's actually from South Carolina, so not so close. But we felt like we were getting big enough that we needed some help for Mark on the Facebook page, and so Louis has kind of joined Mark in that, and so they're kind of tag teaming a lot of things on the Facebook page. And then let's see, I know I'm forgetting people, and that's terrible. There's a lot of other people. Eric Stenson has reached out to us, said by email, said anything he could do to help would be great. And so he's done a lot for us, including going to shows with us, introducing us to people to interview. He's really done a lot for us, and so we want to thank him as well. But we know so many collectors from Dallas and Houston areas that are just really great, upstanding people, and they're not all considered staff, but they are considered friends. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I don't doubt that y'all probably have hundreds of contacts when it comes to it, because y'all been at it for so long.
Absolutely.
And what's always impressed me about Arcade Repair Tips, what I've seen y'all do over the years, because I recently moved from the East Texas area. Well, a few years back, I moved from the East Texas area, and but y'all always had a passion for it, and that's always the thing you can admire about people that came from the generation that grew up in arcades, grew up with pinball, even that grew up with NES, SNES, and all this. If it was a part of your childhood, you have a passion for it one way or another. And so it's really, really cool. One thing I wanted to touch on, and I might be getting kind of to a dark area here, but I'm curious.
Okay.
For those that know or don't know, there are certain urban legends when it comes to arcades. One example, Polybius, was supposedly a government arcade machine that recorded high scores and used it to quote unquote recruit people. Do you know anything about those, and is there anything you can kind of talk about on that subject?
There's not a whole lot I know about it. I've read the kind of the same stuff that you have, and I do think it's kind of funny. In a way. It could be completely serious. Who knows? George Lutz, who's the guy who has the high score on Qbert, he's got like a whole booklet of stuff that he's kind of gathered over the years as far as information on it. But to me, I don't know whether it's real or false, and I'm not going to deny it either way. It's kind of like Bigfoot, right? I'm not sure. Yeah. It's just like, you just don't know. It's like, maybe there was something that was similar to this. We've seen some kind of blurry pictures of cabinets. We've seen some title screens and things like that, but who knows what's mocked up? Who knows what's real? So, for me, like I said, I'm open. If there's enough evidence out there that we can find of it, then maybe it was a real thing. And now it could be something completely innocent other than the government backstory. Who knows? Yeah. But there's just so many variables to it. But hey, you never know. You never know. with this kind of stuff, and especially with the way that arcades were going. Who says the government wouldn't put one out? So it is what it is. And I wish I knew more about it. I wish there was more information out there to find out about it. But for the most part, it just seems right now, just like you said, an urban legend that we may just never know truly exactly what it really was. So
right, yeah, I've always just found that stuff interesting because with whatever genre of entertainment you have a passion for, there's always some offside thing that somebody has mentioned along the way that kind of grew into this big urban legend or something like that. Speaking of which, on a note, some similar reading some folks can do, there's a book called Armada by Ernest Cline. Great book. It actually touches on stuff like that. A kid gets recruited to fight actual aliens. It's obviously nonfiction, but it's a great book, so I definitely recommend that. And I wasn't paid for that either, just so you know. I just like to recommend good reading to fellow gamers and fellow nerds. So,
absolutely.
With that said, are there, because obviously y'all have been around for a while, is there, what I really want to ask is there a lot of groups out there like y'all that help with building arcades?
There are several YouTube channels out there that do help you with your repairs besides ours. I think that we were probably the first to really popularize it, but there are several great channels out there that you can find out even more than what we show. We try to make our videos as plain English, simple as possible so that anybody can understand them. And so that, and that is on purpose, 100%. We want you to feel like even though you know nothing about solder or electronics, that you can watch one of our videos and you can glean how to do something from it. And so some of the videos, they'll take a different tact and they're going to show you the more advanced repairs and things like that. And so, you know, there's a lot of great YouTube channels out there. If you do searches for arcade repair, you will definitely find them. But for our channel, as far as it's concerned, I think we're the only ones that answer questions, have a podcast based around that, as far as that's concerned. And I mean, we do it for free. There's no charge, of course, with that, like we've mentioned before. And so, you know, as far as the setup we have, I mean, Tim likes to say we're the largest arcade repair website in the world, like strictly devoted to arcade repair.
Right.
I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you that we do have a lot of listeners, viewers, and followers, and that we appreciate all of them, and we try to help everybody out as best we can. So if there's anything that we can do to help you out, of course, anybody out there who's watching, feel free to contact us, arcaderepairtips.com. We'll be happy to get back to you. But yeah, I mean, check out YouTube. There are tons of great channels out there that will also have some great videos on how to fix some things that even we don't go into as much detail about. So,
well, and I have to say, because I've checked out a few of y'all's videos from time to time, just because, you know, we're friends on Facebook. I see the stuff you post, and I kept up with Varcade for a while. And I have to agree, your videos are very simplified. It's actually kind of refreshing to see it because, you know, most people that carry on the jargon that a lot of people don't know. You know, so when you can present a series of building that's for the layman, I think that's when your channel can really reach people. And y'all are actually building fairly well for your YouTube channel. So I want to applaud you on that. It's awesome. Y'all do such a great job on it. And y'all are...
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, we as far as YouTube is concerned, I mean, obviously we have YouTube videos up there. We are not as responsive to the YouTube comments as I wish we were. I wish we were a lot more responsive to that. And part of that is because we get a lot of them. We do answer those on the audio podcast, though. So if you do leave YouTube content, you know, YouTube comments, you can listen to that. A lot of times we'll put you on there. But, you know, people might ask, why don't you just respond to them there? A lot of times the answer is much more nuanced than what we can communicate, you know, just kind of in a comment. Sometimes it has to be something that's discussed, something that's walked through. And so it's easier for us to do that in a vocal manner to kind of guide you through, or even to show you some stuff rather than just type out, this is what you do. Because we always want to explain things more than just saying this is what you do. We want to break it down, and we want you to have an understanding of it, even if you're not familiar with it now.
Gotcha. So the easiest way for anybody to answer a question would be through the website then.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Wow. Okay. So, you know, obviously Arcade Repair Tips is doing well. Y'all obviously have a passion for it. It's, you know, and when it comes to gaming overall, I mean, I always go back to this because I'm such a nerd, especially with my channel. You know, I've been doing YouTube for a few years now, and I'm not one of the biggest YouTubers, but my you know, my followers and my subscribers, you know, they love gaming as well. Obviously, they love to watch people game. They love to talk about the history of it, and so it seems like y'all are the same with Arcade Repair Tips. And it's just, again, it's really, really awesome to see how involved and how passionate y'all are for this. It's just, it's great, and y'all are such awesome guys too. You know,
I appreciate all the kind words, and I tell you, Kenny, of course, I know that you have such a passion for games. Man, it really is something that I think permeates you to your very childhood. I mean, it's something that you remember. It's something, you know, you remember the first time you popped in that Mortal Kombat cartridge into your Super Nintendo. You remember those things because it's something that resonates with you on such a childlike level that when you do it again, it gives you that same rush of nostalgia that you had when the first time you did it, or the first time you walked up to a Galaga cabinet, the first time you walked up to a Street Fighter II cabinet, or whatever the case may be. But that's really where the passion comes from, is from experiences as a child, and then as an adult being able to go back to that, almost like going back to that same moment in time and do that same thing that you did, but only do it now when you're an adult. And it really does give you just almost a sense of satisfaction. I think that's where the passion comes from, is just reliving childhood in a way. And I mean, whether you're doing video games or whether you're doing, you know, I don't know, collecting toys or whatever you do. I mean, there's a lot of hobbies out there, but I think trying to rekindle childhood is something that all of us are trying to do to a certain extent, because, you know, we remember how much fun we had when we were kids doing these things, playing these things, whatever the case may be. And so I think with that in mind, that's where the passion comes from, is from reliving those childhood experiences. Sometimes experiences we didn't get to live when we were children. Exactly. I will tell a quick story about Mortal Kombat 2. So when I was a kid, I subscribed to EGM like every good gamer should have, and they had a contest for a Mortal Kombat 2 arcade cabinet. So me and my buddy, of course, are thinking we're going to win this thing. I mean, we have to, right? I mean, we're
Right,
we're the ones that should win this thing. And so we send in the card, and then we start planning out plans for what we're going to do in our neighborhood when we get the arcade game, when they're shipping to our house. And so, we thought we would build a little shed between our two houses, and we call it the Combat Shack. And we put the Mortal Kombat 2 in there. We charged the neighborhood kids to come play it. And so I had all these elaborate plans when I was a kid. Now I'm an adult and I've got a full game room and I have a Mortal Kombat 2 sitting in here. And so, just remembering those great, that great plan that I had for the Combat Shack and having all these kids come over and play. And now I actually get to do that. That's just an incredible experience for me. It's such fun having kids come over here and play these things and just have a good time. Of course, I don't charge anybody. Everything's free play here, but, but maybe I should start charging. I've thought about it a couple of times anyway. We got about 5 more minutes before I have to go, Kenny. So if there's anything in particular that you want to talk about, of course, I did want to mention, I think you mentioned a couple of times, Texas Pinball Festival was really great. And there were some great games there. And so like the new pinball machines, just real quick, I'll go over them for people. The Hobbit was there. So that's Jersey Jack Pinball that makes that. And it's a very good machine. If you haven't seen it, jerseyjackpinball.com, you guys can check it out. Stern, who's the largest pinball manufacturer in the world, that's what they like to say. They just put out Ghostbusters Pinball, which is basically a version based on the original Ghostbusters, not the new one, the original Ghostbusters. So you guys check that out if you haven't already. The other 3 games that were there were games that you might not be as familiar with. Well, one of them was The Big Lebowski. Okay, and that was by Dutch Pinball is the name of the company, and so they had The Big Lebowski. The other one is called Full Throttle. It's done by a European company or UK company, and Highway Pinball. That's what it is. So Full Throttle. It's kind of it's not a licensed theme, so it's not something you would know, but it was a lot of fun. And then there's a new pinball on the scene that's kind of like the future, I guess, of pinball. It's called Multimorphic, and they have a screen that's built into the bottom of the playfield, like where the playfield artwork would be. And the ball actually interacts with things on the screen. The upper part of the playfield has real pinball parts on it, just like a pinball machine. And those 5 were kind of like the standouts this year, Texas Pinball Festival. And so TexasPinball.com, you guys can check that out. You can go to our YouTube page at arcaderepairtips.com /YouTube or youtube.arcaderepairtips.com. That's what it is. So youtube.arcaderepairtips.com will take you to our YouTube page. There you will find about an hour and a half worth of footage from the Texas Pinball Festival with us showing off all these games. And so if you guys are interested in any of those, I can tell you that every single one of them is a lot of fun to play. So I'm not giving you a spoiler or anything like that. All of them are very fun to play. My personal standouts were Ghostbusters, Hobbit, and the Multimorphic. And so if you guys are interested in pinball at all, or even if you're interested in video games, a lot of these pinball machines have become more of a video experience. Hobbit is really interesting. Has an LCD in the back glass where the artwork would be, and it displays clips from the movie all the time. And it has a Smaug on the playfield, and he talks to you and taunts you, and actually opens up his mouth and does really cool stuff. Ghostbusters, though, you have a little Slimer that comes down. He glows. You hit him with the ball. I mean, there's a lot of neat stuff there. And the Multimorphic, because the interactivity with the screen, they have a asteroids type game where the ball, basically, there's asteroids floating on the screen, and the ball rolls over them and breaks them apart. And so it's just like what you would get with like regular asteroids if you guys have played the game. And so the whole object, of course, is to break all the rocks apart, and then you go on to the next level. And so if you guys check out our YouTube channel, again, youtube.arcaderepairtips.com, you guys can check out videos of pretty much everything that we've talked about here from the Texas Pinball Festival. But if you guys are in an area where there's a festival, and if you listen to our audio podcast, we try to put the festivals out there in the different areas, y'all should go. Okay, you pay like one flat fee for the Texas Pinball Festival. I think it's $35 a day, something like that. But for that $35, you get to play all you want. Okay, there's no limit on it. It's all free play. You get to play the latest and greatest stuff as well as the classics. They had Addams Family, Twilight Zone, games that you know and love, I'm sure. So, you have a great
My favorite back in the day was the Back to the Future.
Back to the Future was there.
Yeah.
So, and it had a DeLorean sitting right next to it. So,
oh my God. And I missed it. Bummer.
So,
well, just a quick question, because I've been to a couple of festivals, and it was recommended to me, I think by you or a buddy of mine back in the day, to bring an extension cord.
Okay, now that's for auctions. If you're going to auctions.
Okay.
A festival is different from an auction. An auction, people bring stuff to sell, and you have no idea what condition it's in. A festival, pretty much everything is in pretty pristine condition. And if things sell, it's because they're premium priced. And so this is a little bit different. A festival is more about just coming out and playing the games. There are games there for sale, but it's more about just going out, playing the games, and having a good time. And so if Texas Pinball Festival is the big one here in Texas, there's also the Houston Area Arcade Group Expo, which is here in Houston, of course. And then out in California, you have California Extreme. Out on the East Coast, you have the Southern Fried Game Room Expo in Atlanta, where we'll be this year. So you guys, if you guys want to meet us out in Atlanta, you can do that. But there's festivals from coast to coast. You have no reason not to find a festival in your area and go play. If you guys remember playing games and you remember that as a fun time in your life, you should definitely make a festival at least once and replay some of the games that you remember so well. So
I agree. And even if you didn't play any arcade games, still try it out. Because if you love gaming overall, it's an experience that you have to put on your gaming, a notch in your belt. So,
absolutely.
Jonathan, thanks for hanging out. It was great to have you. It was also great to talk to you again. I know it's been a while for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, if you ever, we can do this again at some point. I think it'd be fun, and I'm glad we were able to do it today. And I hope that your viewers got something out of this. We'll be sending a lot of our viewers your way too. And it really is a fun experience anytime you get to talk to somebody about your passion. Like we said, gaming is definitely one of them, and we have a great time doing what we do, and we love helping people. So again, arcaderepairtips.com, guys. If you need any help, we're happy to help you out. And Kenny, it is always a pleasure talking to you, my friend.
Definitely. Oh, and just a quick note for any of your subscribers that might come to my channel. I try to make some of my videos family friendly, but at the same time, there can be some language involved. So I want to warn about that.
We are very family friendly. I should say that we are very clean. Yeah. You probably noticed that. Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So that's another thing, guys. If your kids want to come to our channel and want to learn stuff about arcade games, they can, no problem. And our audio podcasts are all clean. Our videos, we try to keep as clean as possible. Everything we try to keep on the up and up, because we want to inspire the next 10-year-old to maybe go into building arcade games, whatever the case may be. And so we don't put a restriction on it. You can listen to our podcast with your kids and your wife in the room, and you won't feel embarrassed. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And that was done on purpose because of what we talk about. You talk about some more adult gaming that is, a little bit different anyway. Right, which is fine. Right. Which is fine. I mean, and that's good for your audience, I mean, I understand that. And so, I have no problem with you doing that. It's just for our audience, we try to keep that family friendly demeanor whenever possible. So exactly.
Yeah. And the friendly and just staying true to just great videos, and especially with the tips and everything. So anyway, well, again, thanks for hanging out. I know you got to go, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. But,
not a problem. And hey, we can definitely do this again. You just let me know whenever works best for you. I'd be happy to come back on. And hey, if you ever have any questions, of course, questions@arcaderepairtips.com. That email address will send it right to me and Tim, as well as the rest of the Arcade Repair Tips staff. So send it on. If you have anything, we'd be happy to answer anything from you, Kenny, or from anybody. So.
Okay. Well, like I said, folks, link to their website, their YouTube, and their Facebook down below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and remember, you're an awesome person. Never let the world tell you otherwise. We'll see you later.